Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or whatever time y'all are listening or watching this podcast. Welcome to another episode of the Down in the Valley podcast. My name is Edson Ochoa, and boy, after so many long weeks of not being able to go live and talk about RGV FC stuff, we're back. The 1st of February of 2023, and we're back with y'all here to talk about Toros related news. And of course, I am not alone in this endeavor. Let's welcome our good friend and co-host of this podcast, Jacob Young. Jacob, how you doing?
Doing pretty well. Looking forward to talking some soccer. I've missed this a bit. It's gonna be it should be a good show. I mean, we got so much to talk about, Edson, for the first time in a while. We actually have some news around this time, which is pretty nice to say so myself, because I mean, just thinking about last year, we were like, oh, we barely have a head coach. Oh, who's going to be our starting keeper, or who's going to be, our midfield? We don't have that. Now we do, and I'm feeling pretty good about it.
Deja tú. O sea, not only that, but the fact is, where are all our players? So you start seeing, obviously last season, the first bit of news was, Elvis Samo goes to Colorado, and so-and-so left to here, and so-and-so left to there. And we're like, okay, where's our signings? Then all of a sudden, like, Rodrigo Lopez goes back to Sacramento Republic. Well, like, what the hell? Like, what are we going to be left with now? And so it's like, you started seeing all these other teams making announcements, all these other players getting good signings, and you start getting closer towards the preseason dates, and it started getting close, and it's like, what the hell is RGV FC doing? And then all of a sudden, you start seeing all these barrage of signings, and we're like, okay, I know Jacob, if you recall correctly. When you started hearing that, RGV signed Ricky Reese, RGV signed Jonathan Ricketts from Chattanooga Red Wolves, you're like, well, we aren't doing anything this season. Am I wrong?
Oh, completely correct. Completely correct. I mean, I'm laughing because it's so true. It was 100% real. We were like, no, this season's dead because it was just, it goes back to what I like to say a lot. It's you have to have chemistry on a freaking soccer team. And without us having chemistry, then what are we doing here? Because that's not going to be good for first game. It's not going to be good for, having an opportunity to move forward. It's going to take them time. Probably mid-season, all of a sudden, you're going to be looking at, okay, this team finally maybe just is gelling enough to being able to, going forward. And yeah, I was wrong. Happy to be wrong, but at that same time, it wasn't without a little bit of bumps in the road, especially even mid-season too.
Here's the thing: how long did we suffer with a freaking I don't know how to call it, but I think the realest way to call it an inoperable offense. With Frank Gaviria and Adolfo Hernandez, it was like those guys couldn't. I feel bad for them, but they couldn't even score, even on underneath the rainbow. And it's like, this is what we were dealing with, and it was just frustrating how defensively we look good. We had a couple bumps on the road, like you mentioned, but defensively it looked great. Then all of a sudden, you have this inability to score. And it's not until the midseason where you start getting, these key players in the offense like Fjellberg and Christian Pinzon that sparked your offense, and the Toros were able to salvage a playoff ticket, So It was kind of frustrating, not only because of last season. I agree with everything we were talking about last season, but This isn't something from one year to the next. Like, this is something that has been carried on since almost since the beginning of that this team was created. You know, it was always of they got rid of 80% of the players, whether it was the Dynamo signing them or just the fact that they didn't fit the mold of Matt Jordan's buckets, you know, the fact that they had like 2 years to prove themselves Dynamo first team worthy. If not, they were cut. You know, we ended up losing some really good players, and I'm not saying it just because of bias. You look at players like Connor Donovan, like Kyle Adams. You look at players like Robert Castellanos, and it's players that we had here that we ended up losing because, you know, they never made it to the first team, and yet they're excellent players at the USL Championship level, and it's players that we could have had. I'm not saying we could have had them right now. Obviously they're more than entitled to go and try to advance to better teams, you know, like the Tampa Bay Rowdies in the case of Caste. But we could have had a better opportunity to have established a foundation for years, and the Dynamo just never gave us that opportunity because they controlled our destiny. They controlled, you know, the players that we had. And it was always like that. We lose 80% of the players, and then we ended up getting, you know, players right out of college, players that were from the academy system, and it was right at the very end. And it just really never worked out. And the 2020 season, it was just it was just the straw that broke the camel's back. Arguably the worst season in RGV FC history, you know. So, but now we go into this offseason going into 2023, and it's like you start getting the announcement of these signings right before Christmas, you know, the 12 days of Toros make these announcements. And it's like a lot of fans, you know, whether it's from the Stampede or even like, you know, Abraham Moreno, who, by the way, you know, said hi to us in the chat. And all these other fans of the Toros, you know, say in social media, and they're like, man, this is completely off. This caught me completely off guard. And I'm actually decently surprised that we were able to keep our core foundation going into this season so early. It's like now we're starting to see like Wilmer Cabrera is actually, you know, working during his vacation to make sure, like he mentioned at the end of preseason last season, you know, because I asked him, you know, okay, you know, now we're independent, but now, you know, you had a solid team that made it to the playoffs, but you got rid of them again. It's like, it's like, what was the reason for it? What was the reason for getting rid of all these players? And he mentioned to me in that press conference, he said that while the team was good, he felt that it wasn't a foundation that was going to take this team out into the long term. He said he wanted to see a foundation that would be set and keep on rolling from here on till, you know, maybe 5 years down the road, whether he was still the head coach or he was not the head coach anymore. But he wanted to build a foundation, and it looks like Wilmer Cabrera kept true to his word of building a foundation.
100%. Having that type of foundation is always going to be key for a team, no matter what team it is. You want to play the Atlanta United game, or do you want to play the Minnesota United game, or even Philadelphia Union, in my opinion, because they've seemed like they were able to stretch it to the point of finally going to a championship, but have won so many supporter shields too that have helped them to where they're at today. And point is, it's just that type of level. You have the veterans, you have those veteran players that can really help lead midfield, defense, and even behind goal, or between the pipes, as Ray likes to say. And of course, to help a younger goalkeeper, as we did see last year with Tyler Derrick, and of course the 19-year-old from Mission, or 18-year-old Javier Garcia. And so it's one of those situations where if you have a good mixture of both, you're going to have those young players, once they have to step up, being able to step up and performing just, if not just like the older players, they're going to have a lot more skill, a lot more knowledge behind them if they didn't. So it's really good to see that the training and everything like that is seeming to be in place. We got a couple of, new players that seem a little young, like from Red Bulls too, but I think since a couple of them have been under the belt for a while in the USL, they know what to expect when they go up to a first team like the Toros that are making the playoffs now for 2 straight years, trying to make it a 3rd straight year here, and just building something that needs to be successful. My thing would be winning the first round next and advancing, getting some home games under our belt in the playoffs, stuff like that could be successful. But all that, it just seems like this is the way to go. And Wilmer Cabrera is actually doing what he anticipated, or what he said he'd go out to do last season.
Yeah, definitely. But before we talk about all these signings that we made, I want to go ahead and take a look into the chat really quick. Hopefully the YouTube didn't hear. I'm trying to look at the chat because I forgot to connect my cell phone into the charger, so I'm running out of battery, and I need a way to look into the chat. So let me pop it up right here and turn off. Okay. So let's say hi to everybody in the chat. We've got Abraham Moreno, we've got Harry, we got Blue Club Sports, and Joe Grandson. So Harry Austin, obviously, he's flaunting that San Antonio championship in our faces.
Hey, guess what? They might not make the playoffs this season. It's called a hangover. So at least we got that going for us as Toros fans.
Are we we're not even 15 minutes into the show, and you're already giving off what's it called?
Well, you brought his name up.
You're already giving up early playoff predictions.
You brought his name up, but I mean, what did we see last year with OCSC? Just saying.
That is very true, and I don't think San Antonio's been making a lot of signings either. I know, but they have kind of kept their course supposedly. But this isn't a San Antonio podcast. That's Harry's neck of the woods. So if you guys want to hear about our rivals, be sure to check out his podcast. Blue Club Sports says those were dark times for sure. Abraham says RGV FC started this year with a complete 180 on social media communication. Truly looking forward to what the media team has in store for 2023. That's actually pretty interesting. I mean, I think it all comes back to the fact that the technical staff actually gave the marketing team, the media team, actually something to work with. Yeah. I mean, if you don't have any content to work with, what are you going to do?
Exactly.
So I think it all goes back to the fact that Wilmer Cabrera worked on getting these signings done before the team left for vacation and all of that. And that gave, the marketing team the time and the content to actually work on something that was fun, that was never seen before, and took advantage of, the holiday times. So, I think that's where it goes. And I definitely agree, about the content that social media has done. I would like a little bit more of interactivity from the RGVFC social media. That's still one of my quirks about the way they handle the social media. It's just, post about, news, but no interaction. Whereas, some other accounts tend to be a little bit more interactive with their fans or with people that are replying. So
yeah, I definitely do see that. And I mean, it's great to see media team finally taking advantage of what they have, which is awesome. Of course, they were given content to actually post for the first time in a long time. And now, of course, it's up to, I would even say now it's up to marketing. I know it's, of course, too early, but we're talking about what are they going to do for the home opener? What type of deals can they have? What type of giveaways will they have? Who's going to be down there? It's stuff like that. I want it to be almost like a party atmosphere for that first game. I know this is just me speculating, me talking, but now again, it's up to marketing. We want to see a great crowd for the first match. We want to see how they can use those players to their advantage too. I know that we haven't talked about the signings yet, but it goes back to what they were able to do last year with all the players. You and I talked about it, and this was a huge step up. Now we want to see that next step up for marketing, is what I'm trying to say, is those fans having a connection to the players, because the players were there for so long. I mean, we've known Tyler Derrick would be back, and he's back once again. And it's players like that we want to see what the media, what the team, especially marketing team, will be able to do with all of that. And just how will that season be able to build up these fans basically, just like the Vipers have been able to do for ages.
Yeah, I think, like I mentioned at the end of last year, I think they've done a decent improvement, and you've seen it reflected in the number of people that were up in the stands. Like I mentioned, we ended the season with one of the highest, if not the highest, attendance or reported attendance in the last couple of years. I think it was around 5,000 against Monterey Bay, reportedly. The average attendance did get higher at the end of 2022. Now it's just a matter of continuing with that momentum as we head into 2023. Obviously, we're talking about the technical staff. They did their signings. You're starting to see some announcements. Now it's up to marketing to see what they can do to continue that trend, and hopefully, like we mentioned, get the park filled in the next coming years. Because I think these years are going to be very key. I've been kind of putting off what I'm about to say, but you have to remember 2025, you got UTRGV football coming in.
Yeah.
And from what it looks like, they're overshadowing RGV FC big time. So the last thing I think the Toros need is for football to overshadow the Toros, especially when it looks like everything seems to be pointing at UTRGV Vaqueros football will be playing at HB Park. So this is very key in order to maintain that momentum as we go into 2025. The last thing we need is for it to be overshadowed, or worse, for this team to disappear.
Yep. 100%. You are correct, Edson. I agree with everything that you're saying. I forgot about that for a second. Made me a little upset right now, but I'll calm down, because it has not happened yet, but it most likely will. Then there will be a couple of games we know for a fact at Sam Stadium. So at least there's that benefit to that side. But yeah, it's big time where that momentum needs to stay, because the last thing that we want is for everybody to forget about the Toros, because guess what? 3 is better than 2, and 2 is always better than 1. And hopefully it's going to be 3 instead, because let's face it, we have not had the best of luck in the Valley with just sports teams in general. So I think, marketing, they simple as this, need to show up this year. I, for one, even say I will volunteer as not, I almost said media, but as a marketing personnel person, just to freaking try and sell some tickets, promote this team, the heck out of this team, promote anything that can get butts in seats, to help this team out, because they deserve as much love as they will produce this season with how many games that they will win. Yes, already I think I've tweeted this already on Twitter. If not, I've told my friend this, but I expect a top 3 finish from RGV FC.
Well, here's hoping. So continuing on with the chat, we've got Harry says, "Hello, Edson and Jacob. Hope the offseason has been good for both of you." We'll talk about it right now. Just give me a couple of minutes to say hi to the chat. Joe Granson says, "Frustrating seeing good players taken by the Dynamo just for them to never see minutes on the first team. Charlie Ward especially hurt me." Right. That has got to be the one that hurt me the most. It was just so frustrating, that we lost our best player and he wasn't given an opportunity with the first team, much less actually given an opportunity to be loaned down back to RGV so he can get some playing time minutes. I don't think I've ever said this before, but I remember that year I actually talked to Charlie. Ward. It was after a Dynamo game, and obviously he didn't even make it to the bench, so he wasn't suited up. But I found him back in the locker rooms, and I was talking to him, and yeah, he kind of voiced his frustration of about that. And there's actually a video that Ray recorded and posted back in those days. That was when I believe he was with San Antonio. Actually, after he left the Dynamo, he goes to San Antonio and he starts blasting Matt Jordan. I still have it on my phone.
Yeah,
I still have it on my phone. But it was just so frustrating to not only, and he wasn't the only former player that voiced his frustration on the Dynamo, and he said pretty much echoed the same feeling. "I have no problems with RGV. I love the Valley. I love the fans, but I just can't stand the Houston Dynamo."
Yeah, exactly.
And the way they handled it.
Yes.
So it's one of those. It's one of those things.
As well as one player that I'd like to put a nickname to. This will either succeed or this will either fail very quickly with the nickname. This goes back to how his appearance was with the RGV FC Toros. One of the fastest players, the fastest rat, because he had a rat tail in the back. That's Chuy Enriquez. I don't know if you caught the nickname, fast rat.
Sir, I will not stand. I will not stand for the dissing of Chuy Enriquez.
Hey,
I am his number one fan.
It's no diss. He was the fastest player on this team and helped us out.
That is very true.
And he did have a rat tail
for a while. Yes,
it is called rat.
Yeah, but Chuy, if you ever find yourself listening, man, much love to you and your family. Congratulations on your baby girl. So continuing to see, Blue Club says, "Do you guys know if we're getting a new kit?" We'll talk about it real quick later on. Callow, by the way, good friend of mine when back when I was doing the Houston Dynamo podcast, whether it was with the Peel or Generation Orange. Glad to see you back watching and listening to the podcast. Missed you, man. Have you been? First, he says, I've been impressed with the unattached RGV. You're making me go down the rabbit hole of what I've said in, I believe it was like 3 videos ago when I was talking about the independence. I think it was the 2-year anniversary of the independence from the Houston Dynamo, and how many Dynamo fans pretty much said, "Be careful what you wish for," specifically one person, and I already said his name many times, so yo creo que está de más decirlo, but he knows who he's talking about, Sean. Kind of saying, like, be careful what you wish for. I'm more than likely saying that we were going to fail, and I think the statistics have shown that we have been better as an independent club, maybe not financially, but results-wise, I think we've been better so far as an independent club rather than being with the Houston Dynamo. I think the fans have kind of shown their love for that particular situation happening, their appreciation towards Ron Patel for making it happen. And I don't care what Ron Patel says about how we had an influence in that decision. I think at the end of the day, he was the one responsible for making it done. We're only sitting here bitching and moaning about
he signs the papers. He signs the checks, basically.
Yeah. So huge shout out to Ron who made this happen. We're extremely extremely happy to what we're seeing from the Toros. So a Blue Club says the last home game was packed. I was really impressed by that. The football team is going to make our pitch unplayable. Yes, I think there's many.
yeah.
I think there's many instances of stadiums where the football team and the soccer team kind of shares a field that is not artificial. Artificial kind of be better, but this is natural, and they tend to be affected a lot easier with a lot of use, especially with football. Just the nature of the sport damages the field quicker than soccer. I think if you guys remember, I don't know if whoever watches Liga MX, Monterrey used to be at the Tecnológico, and the college team shared the stadium, and there were many times where the college team played, I think, the night before Rayados played at Liga MX, and the field was just absolutely horrible to be able to be played there, and they still played, but it was just not fun. It was not a fun performance by either of the teams that would play. Abraham says, I really didn't want to hear about UTRGV football. Sorry, man.
No one did, Abraham. No one did. But this is reality now, sadly. That it's happening, whether we freaking like it or not, in literally 2 years, or a little less than that now, which is frustrating because by this time in 2025, let's just put this together in general. It is officially February 1st. What happens on February 1st? National Signing Day. Everybody gets the finalizations on signing for high school students to college athletes. After that, then it becomes a little bit of spring training. Spring training happens a little bit later, it's in March, but then you have the April spring game. Then after that, they take a little bit of break after, and then going into May, they might still have a bit of a break, but then it's like June, July, August, September. It's all about football from then on. So then they use the field consistently and relentlessly and religiously and all of that fun stuff. So it's also the practice fields that will be used. And well, that's that basically. So we'll have to get ready for that. Alonso Cantu will have to make sure that the biggest bill paid will be from UTRGV for a really, really, really good grounds crew in order to keep this field looking in tip-top shape for both soccer and football, because both teams don't want to be playing in big old potholes.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And the fans don't want to see that either.
Mhm.
So Blue Club says no one is going to UTRGV football games after the first few games. They're not even in Division 1.
Yes,
I wouldn't.
They're in the WAC. That's Division 1. That's actually Division 1. The WAC will be in D1 again for the first time in a long time. And there's going to be a good amount of Texas schools there, including ACU. So that's Division 1. Yes, it's not.
Yeah, you know more about you know more about that than I do.
Yeah, it gets worse. They're not necessarily in a Power 5 school, but they can win 6 games or more and win a conference tournament and play in the Birmingham Bowl, which is better known to be the worst bowl in college football.
There it is, everybody. But yeah, I wouldn't put it past it either. Unfortunately, and I've said it before, we here in the Rio Grande Valley tend to be very bandwagonish in the sense of we only support, obviously I'm not generalizing, but for the most part, and the fans here are one of those people where if the team isn't doing well, they stop going. And okay, it's it's on them. It's their money, right? I obviously can't tell them what to do or not, what not to do with their money. But technically, there is unless it's their Liga MX team, where something that's been built, from generations or not, the way, let me put it this way: when I talk about people that haven't heard about the Toros, the first question they ask is how they're doing in the league. And that was a hard question to answer back when we were under the Houston Dynamo. So it's like, oh yeah, we're in the bottom of the table. What division? Division 2. Nah, fuck that. So yeah, I do see that if our UTRGV football doesn't do well, I think a lot of these fans that, because it's so new, it's so fresh, then they want to check it out. They're gonna little by little, they might stop going. Yeah. That's what I'm worried about. Kind of changing the subject a little. I'm worried about this whole next gen thing and how that's gonna affect NASCAR attendances. But let's not go too deep into that. That'll be for something else. Carlos says, I mean, I said some stuff, but I also made it clear that it was going to take work and commitment from the front office to make the team successful on its own. And it's a valid point. He did make those points. It was feedback that, it's very realistic. It wasn't just to bash the team or, como dicen, por sentirse ardidos. It's valid, and that's exactly what's happening in some instances. Like I said, there's still a lot of things that need to improve in RGVFC's front office, but the main ones, I think, have been making some improvements that have been for the better, So Blue Club says, I really don't want them to change the surface to artificial. Neither do I. Carlos says, I'm going to keep a closer eye on the team this year. The be careful what you wish for was more of a, it's going to be rough. God, I guess that was my interpretation of it. Only Sean knows what his true intent was with that statement. All I know is it was used by RGVFC in one of their promos back in 2021. So I just thought that was hilarious. But anyway, thank you, chat, for all of your comments, and we'll see y'all next week. No, second hand. Thank you. If you guys, as the show goes on, if you guys have any questions, you guys have any comments, be sure to put it into the chat, and we'll kind of take our time real quick at the end of the show to kind of go over it. But for now, let's go ahead and start going into the meat and potatoes of this RGVFC offseason. So we talked about it a little while ago about all the signings that RGVFC made prior to Christmas in the 12 days of Toros. So RGVFC officially announced the re-signings or the returns of Tyler Derrick, Wahaba Akwe, Eric Pimentel, Robert Coronado, Jose Francisco Torres, Juan David Cabezas, Christian Pinzon, Frank Nadars, Frank Lopez, Jonathan Ricketts, Ricky Reese. Jacob, come on. Tell me what you're thinking with those signings.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I was in awe. Because again, it goes back to it. We re-signed players, and they were fantastic players throughout the season. I mean, for crying out loud, Tyler Derrick had a couple of shutouts. And I know it didn't happen too often, but he got a lot of people free jumbo jacks, and got a couple of people some free Chick-fil-A sandwiches because of wins. So that was huge in its own at home, because I mean, you got to give the fans a little something in return for showing up and cheering you on. And that's only one player. I mean, then again, Jonathan Ricketts. What is there to really say about him? He played impressively throughout the season. It started off a little bit shaky, won't lie, but through the times, he was much better of a player. I think it was just, as time will tell, how good is he going to be, and all of that from last season. So I liked these re-signings is what I'm trying to get to, and I think it was a perfect amount of re-signings for those. And I mean, what more could you ask for them not being, I don't know, non-goal scorers that you didn't necessarily need, that might have been a little too old to be playing in the first place?
Yeah, and going back with Jonathan Ricketts, I mean, the guy, I mean, you mentioned it. I also kind of mentioned it. Like, I wasn't expecting him to be a starter in this team. And especially when you brought in Luka Malasevich, who was coming in, it wasn't one of the most well-known leagues in Europe, but he had some European experience nonetheless in Montenegro. He grew up. I think he had some experience here. I think in college. I don't remember exactly. But Luka Malisevic came with a higher bit of pedigree, right, than Jonathan Ricketts. And Luka Malisevic, the minutes that he played, he really didn't. He really didn't impress me at all. I'm pretty sure he didn't impress Wilmer Cabrera either. Decided to give the opportunity to Jonathan Ricketts, and man, Jonathan Ricketts has just been balling, for RGV FC. Just the fact that he actually made the list of, I think, was it the 10 players under 21 to look out for. It's a list that was made by John Morrissey of USL Tactics. That in and of itself, it's hard for a player to kind of reach some sort of national notoriety within USL with being in the Toros, and just the fact that he was able to catch the attention. I think it speaks volumes of his performances with RGVFC back in the 2022 season. Glad to see him back. Glad to see Ricky Reese back. And surprisingly, you guys are probably going to be surprised at what I'm about to say, but I'm actually happy that Frank Nodarse is actually back. In the beginning of the season, he wasn't my favorite player. He had some issues whenever he played. I mean, he played in the midfield. He scored a goal against North Carolina FC in the Open Cup, but that was just about it. He just didn't look really, really well at all. Then I get some information from a source that says, "Oh, he's been playing injured." I was like, "Holy crap!" That just makes a lot of sense. At the end of the season, he fully recuperates and he starts giving these lights out performances, replacing Eric Pimentel. And it's like, man, this is the Frank Nodarse we want to see. This is the Frank Nodarse that I want to see him battle against, Eric Pimentel for that top spot, especially considering that Eric Pimentel is aggressive as hell and he's always getting yellow cards. There's three things in life that are certain: life, or what is it? Death, taxes, and an Eric Pimentel yellow card. So glad to see him back. Robert Coronado, I mean, he's a player that, man, I'm glad to see him back, just so he can get an opportunity to get some more minutes. The last two seasons haven't been so kind for him. Obviously, he broke his metatarsal with OKC Energy, missed out most of the season. Here at RGVFC, I mean, he got benched by Akeem O'Connor-Ward, and he scored 4 goals as a midfielder, yeah, but the minutes were scarce for him. But either way, it's good to have him back. And obviously you talked ad nauseum about Tyler Derrick. Wahabakwe is another surprise player that really surprised how well he played. Gringo Torres and Juan David Cabezas. Yeah, they're more older than younger, but they're players with a veteran leadership. Yeah. That's always needed. Christian Pinzon, I think there's not much to say about Christian Pinzon that we haven't said before about how amazing he was for RGVFC. Great to have him back. Frank Lopez, I mean, he's a veteran. He was injured, last season. I just hope that he stays healthy this season. That's all I ask. I think he's a decent player. I think he's improved mentally compared to previous years, like especially when he was in San Antonio. He had a dumb red card against us that screwed over San Antonio at Toyota Field. I don't know. I think overall, I like these re-signings. I don't know what the chat thinks about them, but I think overall it's been a pretty positive feedback from most of the fans that I've seen talk about on social media.
Yeah, they just need to stay healthy. Simple as that. I mean, this is a team that these are returning stars, I should say, that if they were to stay healthy, I mean, you're talking about lights out performances almost every night. Even with the Open Cup, we got to remember that coming up onto the schedule. Then you got to also remember that there's going to be times where we play 5 straight games in a row. So then you got to start to think about what are the bench going to look like with that. But with these stars, I think a lot of them can play close to those 5 straight games without really feeling, well, yes, feeling it, but without really just being on the verge of getting injured because they're too tired.
Uh-oh. Looks like you got a comment from Facebook that is directed towards you, Jacob. You better brace yourself in that seat. I don't know, bring in those racing belts to strap yourself on. You ready?
Tighten those belts one last time. Let's go.
All right. Travis Ricketts says, the only thing shaky about Jonathan was a certain podcaster identifying him and Ricky as roster fillers. Jacob, you're starting off 2023 much like you started off 2022.
Well, I mean,
and then puts a laughing emoji.
We'll see how it all goes.
Damn, Sid calling you out.
Hey, he's got the preseason to warm up to everybody. So he starts to score some goals in preseason, gets hot, all of a sudden he can't be stopped. So there's that. He didn't really have preseason last year.
You want me to be honest? I'm actually surprised we were able to keep Jonathan Ricketts because I heard that there were some MLS Next Pro teams that were looking at him.
Mm-hmm. The second worst league in the United States. Won't name who the first bad league is, but I think we all know it's a team who wants to franchise their teams more than allow something called pro rel.
Let's not go into that slippery slope because right now I've had enough with the back and forth between the Wrexham FC fans and MLS fans on Twitter. Like it's just a cesspool of negativity, and when it comes to that topic of pro rel. So I am not touching that with a 10-foot pole at this moment. That'll be for another episode when I want to make more hot takes, but today is not the day.
You're looking at a Wrexham AFC fan, by the way.
All right.
Yeah.
Blue Club says
it's possible MLS to be a fan of Wrexham and the MLS. Just saying.
I hate it when it's like like a black or white issue. It's like, it's so dumb. But now you're making me go into that freaking rabbit hole, Jacob. Stop it. Abraham says, Jono taking home the Player of the Year award was much deserved. All around fantastic player. 100. Definitely agree with that. Blue Club says O'Connor Ward will be missed. Unfortunately, unfortunately for us, but fortunately for him, he wanted to be closer to his family. That's one of the reasons why he went to Memphis 901. Callo says, is Papa still with the club? No. Vicente Sanchez, after 2021, retired. He pulled a Tom Brady. He retired again and is now with Pachuca as an assistant coach in Liga MX. So Luke Up says, Cabeza's yellow card is always guaranteed as well. Harry says, why are you calling me out, Edson? I didn't say names. I did not say names. El que le quede el saco que se lo ponga, as we say in Spanish. Weird. MLS fans are weird to other MLS fans too. That is very true. But anyway, continuing on. So we talked about the signings the players that we re-signed that are coming back for 2023. Now, here's the thing. After Robert Coronado was signed, the press release said that those were all the players from last season that were going to come back, which means like players like Juan Pablo Torres, Isidro Martinez, among others, are not coming back. Mm-hmm. And I especially am kind of a little bit hurt about Isidro because he's a local player, right? But yep. I think from what I've heard, it's a decision from the player, to venture out and try to find a different team. And so, like I said, it looks like he's not coming back. And so that's I guess that's pretty much it for him. And I wish him the best. However, there were some more signings that were announced by other teams related to RGV FC. We talked about in one of the videos, we talked about Emilio Icaza signing with Charleston Battery. Then we add as well Javier Garcia going to El Paso Locomotive. How about that? What was your reaction to that? About specifically Javier Garcia going to El Paso?
It's like, great, we're on this again. This time it's not San Antonio taking our players. It's the guys up west who think they're better than us because they got a different time zone and mountains and snow and stuff. But yeah, no, in all
Tell me how you really feel.
Well, that's a whole different story about them being like an hour. Well, yeah, an hour behind us and getting that mountain time, extra hour of sleep. Sounds pretty relaxing up in El Paso is what I'm saying. But other than that, yeah, it's true. It feels like now El Paso is going to be the ones taking our ex players for a while. But yeah, what more can you say? This man wasn't going to necessarily get a lot of starting time down here. He was only going to be mentored. Basically, he's still a very, very young player to be a goalkeeper in general. So he's got plenty of time before he really hits that peak and can make it up past the USL. Always teams' goals for now, at least making it past the USL and probably making it overseas over to the big E, which would be England to be exact. In my eyes, that's the top of the food chain for soccer. But besides that, which I think that's every player's goal, is just to make it to England or to Europe is what I meant to say. But besides him, yeah, we're gonna miss him. But those players, they wanted to spread their wings and fly. It sounds very cheesy for that comment, but it's very true. It's like, okay, my time in the valley is done. Let's see who else is biting. Let's see who will sign me. And then once they finally sign them, it's most likely either out of Texas or just in a completely different culture.
Now, I see that Blue Club Sports says Javier Garcia probably left because he knew he cannot beat out Derek for the first team. Weak move from him. I disagree with the weak move.
No, not a weak move. No,
I agree with that was probably the reason, but I disagree that it was a weak move.
No.
Because what's better for him as a player trying to make his way? I mean, he said it himself. He wants to one day in the future play in MLS and even in Europe in the Premier League. Yeah. His sights are on the Premier League. And what's better for him at this moment? Getting minutes. Yes. rather than being on the bench, rather than being on the bench. And like he mentions, he wasn't going to do it with Derek. I mean, the only reason he got put into the spotlight and succeeded was because both Tyler Derrick and Colin Miller got injured. So now El Paso Locomotive had 0 goalkeepers at that time. They cleaned house with as far as the goalkeepers, because the goalkeeper that they had was terrible. It's with John Hutchinson. Now you bring in Javier Garcia, you bring in the Claire Holt, the new coach. And what's the best way? They need a keeper. They saw the potential of Javier Garcia. Let's sign him, So now he has an opportunity to be a starter with El Paso Locomotive. Now, like I mentioned in my previous video, I said, this move is either going to make him or break him. Why?
True.
Because we know that El Paso's play style, supposedly Claire Hall has a similar play style than John Hutchinson had, which was offensiva all the way, all out attack, didn't really focus much on the defense. You saw how much they struggled defensively last season. Getting scored on 5 times by Las Vegas Lights or anything like that.
And having a pretty crazy game, if I'm not mistaken, against, it wasn't San Antonio, but I remember one time.
It was Las Vegas. That was Las Vegas.
Yeah, it was the Las Vegas game.
I think it finished back and forth. I think it was finished like 5-4 or 5-5. No me acuerdo.
Yeah, okay.
But the point I'm trying to make is that kind of defense, that'll either pull you a Memo Ochoa, like he's happening right now with Sassuolo. Yeah, he's getting scored on a lot, but he's shining with all these outstanding saves that outshine, all these goals that he's been letting in because his defense is so bad. Or that just kind of hammers the point. He doesn't make a lot of saves. He still gets scored on a lot of times. It's like, well, I guess he's not ready for the professionals, right? Yeah. So that can make or break his career. It's a risky move, I think, but it's a move that I feel is going to, if it works for him, it's going to catapult him at a better level. Who knows? Maybe the next season he does a good job. Maybe next season or the one after, you can start getting the Tampa Bay Rowdies calling his name Louisville City. Or, now you're starting to see the trend that, teams in England are starting to take USL players as well. So, like I said, it's a risky move, but I feel like it's going to be worth it in the end if he plays his cards right.
Yeah, the best thing that I can say, even with this move, is if you're comfortable, you're doing it wrong. And if he was comfortable here at RGV FC, he's doing it wrong. He needed to move. Simple as that. Because, yeah, like you said, it will make or break him. And that's a perfect way to put it, is he needs that type of pressure. This will get him ready. No, even if he fails, I think he'll learn a lot from that experience. And if he has to play 3 years in college as a college keeper, he'll get eyes. He will definitely get eyes if he gets accepted into an MLS Next club, because that to me is still a downgrade. Then sure. So it's one of those situations where this is definitely a good move, even if he fails, in my eyes.
Yeah. I think that's the best way to describe it. Like I said, I mean, those are our opinions. I mean,
and they are the law. You do not deserve to have any other opinions, people who are watching.
Based Jacob. No, on a serious note, at the end of the day, it's our opinions. You can have a much different opinion that we have. We're not here to force you all to believe how we believe. I mean, at the end of the day, you guys can have a different opinion and you tell us why you believe it. And it turns out, hey, maybe, he's got a point. We've had it happen before. And that's the beauty of this. We're building a community for fellow Toros fans to talk about the team. And, having all of these discussions only helps grow the coverage and, getting the interactions needed for, the Toros to spread not only within social media and on YouTube, but also, in real life. When more people start talking about the Toros, at their workplace, at school, or lo que sea, it's like that could only help, bring out, the coverage to people who may not know about the Toros, here in the Rio Grande Valley. So I appreciate your opinion, Blue Club Sports. So so thank you for bringing that up. That's what we're here for. Appreciate it. So we talked about signings, players that left are still waiting for a club. Now we've got to talk about the players that we signed from outside the team for going into 2023. So RGVFC, another thing that surprised a lot of people, getting all these signings, from outside the leagues, outside the team, so early in the season, of course, or in the off season. So RGV FC announced the signings of Gabriel Benitez, who's a 29-year-old Venezuelan international left back, signed from Deportivo Táchira on a free transfer according to Transfer Market. He had 161 appearances in the Liga FUTVE, so the League of Venezuela, between 2012 and 2022. Damn, that's a decade. With 29 years old, and he had a decade experience at the Venezuelan League. He also competed in continental club competitions, making 5 appearances in the CONMEBOL Copa Libertadores, and that's not an easy feat, and 10 appearances in the CONMEBOL Copa Sudamericana with three separate clubs: Deportivo Anzoátegui SC in 2016, Zulia FC in 2019, and his most recent club, Deportivo Táchira, in 2022. He also competed at the senior international level, making his debut for Venezuela in 2019 during an exhibition against Trinidad and Tobago. That was his only appearance internationally. This past season, Benitez made 28 appearances overall for Deportivo Táchira across Liga Fútbol and the Copa Libertadores, notching 1 goal and 1 assist in 1,992 minutes of action. So he's a left back. So he's in the same position as Robert Coronado. Moving on, we'll talk about our overall reactions or overall thoughts on these signings after I finish listing them. So that was Gabriel Benitez. Now you have Eric Kinsner, who's a 19-year-old center back, joined Tacoma Defiance as a USL Academy signing in the 2020 season before turning professional with the club. Kinsner made 21 appearances across 2 seasons for the Defiance, logging 1,647 minutes of action and recording 23 interceptions, 60 clearances, and 66 recoveries. This past season, Kinsner competed for both the Defiance following the club's move to MLS Next Pro, and then went on loan in USL League One with FC Tucson, where he made 12 appearances and posted a dual success rate of 56.4%, a tackle success rate of 66.7%, and made 33 clearances in 864 minutes of action. Then you have the signing of Ian Cerro, who's a 26-year-old attacking midfielder. Wow. He made the jump to the USL Championship level, having competed for the last 2 years in NISA, the National Independent Soccer Association. The midfielder signed his first pro contract in the U.S. with NISA club Chicago House AC in 2021 and appeared in 12 matches and scored 3 goals for the club. Last January, he went to Chattanooga FC. Don't confuse it with Chattanooga Red Wolves, because that's the Red Wolves are USL League One. Chattanooga FC is from NISA. They're two completely separate teams. Via free transfer, where he played in the 2022 NISA season. The attacking midfielder scored 4 goals in 25 season matches, adding 2 assists, and also notched 1 assist in 2 games in the Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup. Overall, Cerro has logged 40 appearances across All-American competitions and has netted 7 goals while contributing 3 assists. The dynamic midfielder brings a welcome attacking option to the Toros offense, which relies on a fast-paced rhythm on the pitch. Now, we did get some words from the Section 109 podcast who covers Chattanooga FC, and they said he's left-footed, extremely technical, can play in the middle of the field as a 10 or as a 7 cutting in. Think like a classic Argentinian 10. Has a long shot in him, a decisive pass to 4 goals, 3 assists, 3 hockey assists in 2,249 minutes. Will be an asset in RGV FC's possession style. Then, this is the player that everybody was expecting, thanks to USL Insider. We talked about it in the first video of RGV FC News and Rumors that I uploaded. And I'm talking about the Colombian Juan Galindres. He's a striker. In the 2022 season, the 28-year-old attacker netted 13 goals for USL League One side Chattanooga Red Wolves and dished out a single assist as he helped the side reach the 2022 USL League One final, where they ultimately fell to South Georgia Tormenta FC 2-1. Overall, Galindres scored 24 goals in 57 appearances for the Red Wolves from 2021 and through 2022. He finished as the 4th best goal scorer in League One and the best goals per minute played ratio in the league. I talked about it in that video. He played alongside Ricky Reese and Jonathan Ricketts in 2021 with the Red Wolves. 4 out of his 10 goals that he scored that season were assisted by either one of these 2 current Toros players. So there's the connection right there that we're hoping to see with the Toros this season. Michael Knapp, he's a midfielder, defensive midfielder, adds a multifunction option to the midfield capable of both playing a defensive role and aiding the attacking wings and the front line. The New Jersey native has spent the past season in the USL Championship with Red Bulls 2. Across 2 seasons, Knapp appeared in 43 matches and logged 2,349 minutes of action overall as a formidable midfield asset to the side. Obviously, he's talking about his college career. While he was in college, he also competed for the Red Bulls under-23 in USL League 2 before joining Red Bulls 2. So the last signing that we have announced is Cristiano Francois. Francois boasts a proven track record in USL Championship. The Haitian international has logged an impressive 162 appearances across the regular season and playoffs, recording 32 goals and 34 assists in the league. Additionally, since the start of the 2017 season, the 29-year-old has completed 265 dribbles, ranking 5th in the championship over that span. His standout season offensively came 2 years ago at Miami FC, where he racked up 11 goals and 7 assists, showcasing his attacking specialty as a winger. This past season, Francois competed for fellow USL Championship club Paso Locomotive FC. He has seen a plethora of action with numerous league clubs, which include Richmond Kickers, Rochester, New York FC, Pittsburgh Riverhounds, Ottawa Fury, and Reno 1868. He's also an international player with Haiti. He made his debut on September 7th, 2019. And he has 3 total appearances with the Haitian national team. Jacob, your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are as followed. Well, on the last one for sure, right off the bat, I mean, Francois sounds like an absolutely insane asset to have. Like we said, he played for El Paso Locomotive was his last team, if we're not mistaken. So guess what? That was a pretty good trade, if I do say so myself, giving up none other than Javier Garcia for, I don't know, somebody on the field that we kind of need. Still, I mean, unproven, but we'll see. Seems like a pretty good one. Also, his name is freaking awesome. Francois. It just rolls off the tongue. Francois. Beautiful. Going back to other names like Frank Knapp, that looks pretty good, from New Jersey. He seemed like a star. He's going to be a young player, probably will be on the bench for a bit, but I think he's going to get some minutes. A lot of full-time minutes is what I mean. And he, again, is going to really help out this club in general. Just being able to bring on fresh legs late in a match like that is going to be key. Of course, that's up to Coach Wilmer Cabrera. And then, of course, along the lines of the other players, it's absolutely great. It seems like very good stacked signings for the USL. And we need a little bit of youth into this team. And I think that's a perfect amount. And it's like a lot of these players are right in the middle too, where they're not too young, but they're definitely not too old. And so there's going to be a chance for them to be re-signed for a couple of years to come until they're ready to play at an MLS or just that next level in general.
So keep in mind, guys, that from what it looks like, these signings are more of bench and reserves. God, it sounds like 2022. Hopefully Travis doesn't get mad. But contrary to 2022, we already have a solid foundation. That's technically most of, not all of these players that we re-signed are starters, right? Yeah. So we're getting some depth, right? Yes. So these aren't necessarily players that are gonna be starters right off the bat. So we've got players that got potential, like I said, with Eric Kinsner, who I believe was, and I didn't mention it, but I think he was also a Generation Adidas player with Seattle, Seattle's academy. So you got Ian Cerro, who's been talked about greatly in his previous team that he was at. Eric Kinsner. I don't know a lot about Gabriel Benitez. I think I talked to a little bit with Dynamic Foxtrot, and Andres said that he's kind of been off and on. There's really not much that he knows about that player. So hopefully we will see a little bit more, a closer eye in the first couple of games here in the USL Championship. Out of all these players, really, I don't have a complaint. I think I know a couple of people kind of made the comment about, who was it? Michael Knapp, and said, oh, another, USL League One player. Well, also, with Ian Cerro and Kinsner, well, the fact that they come in from lower leagues. And specifically talking about Michael Knapp, well, he comes from New York Red Bulls too, and they were one of the worst teams in the USL Championship.
You got to remember, one player doesn't make the whole team.
That's true. Take a look at Wahab Akwe. Wahab Akwe, before he was with the Toros, he was with Loudoun United, And that team was a complete crap show back in 2021, if you remember.
Yep. Hashtag I was Wahab's Uber driver for a bit.
And then look where he's at right now. Arguably one of the best defenders in that back line.
Yep.
You know, with the Toros. So we're hoping that Michael, right? Michael Knapp has a similar breakout here with RGV now that he's, you know, not surrounded by a bunch of young academy players and actually has, you know, professionals that he can, you know, learn from and continue growing in his development. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's one of those things where it's a low risk, high reward kind of players. You know, if they don't turn out, we didn't pay anything for it. The salary isn't probably that big to begin with. You can always just, you know, let his contract run out and sign another player in the next season. But if it pans out, like Jono and Ricky did, and Wahabakwe, where you're going to do the best that you can to re-sign him. And hopefully, you know, if you re-sign him, maybe a multi-year deal, you can probably get, you know, a transfer deal in the future for them. You know, so but that's my way of thinking, right? But the only player that I really have a big doubt on is Cristiano Francois. Yeah, his stats say he has good stats, but when was it? I mean, it said it himself. His breakout season was with Miami 2 years ago. What's he been doing since? And the Paso Locomotive, he really didn't do well. I mean, he played, what was it? I just had it right here in Transfer Market.
Maybe he needs to go
he had
back
26. He has 26 appearances. 1 goal, 1 assist. Right?
He was playing in colder weather, though.
I saw him in a match at Toyota Field between San Antonio and El Paso Locomotive. It was a match that I went to do an episode of the Striker Texas podcast with Joe Rodriguez, the reporter for El Paso, and Jonathan Check, the reporter for San Antonio, and of course Roberto Silva, the executive director of the Striker Texas at that time. I saw that game in person. Francois played that game. Right off the bat, he is like, I told Joe, is like, who's that guy? And why? Like, I didn't like the way he played. I mean, he lost a lot of balls, a lot of passes, and it was just hard to watch, at least for me, right? In fact, you know, I asked Joe a couple days ago about, you know, what were his thoughts on how he played in San Antonio, and basically he says, I'd say it's average at best, and that's being generous. Okay. And that's somebody that saw him practice, that saw him play week in and week out with El Paso Locomotive. It's not just as some average schmo that, you know, that doesn't watch a lot of El Paso. Like, he's been in depth. Like I said, he's seen him in practices. He's seen him in the locker room, and he tells me he's average at best, and that's being generous. Can he revert with the Toros under Wilmer Cabrera's more organized tactics, way of play that has a definite, you know, role for him in that formation? Maybe, you know, but those are my thoughts on Francois. It's now up to Wilmer Cabrera and obviously on Francois to see if he can salvage his career and get it back in the right path. But that's my opinion. I respect if you believe otherwise. And if anybody hears me from the team, you know where to find me at Ochoa_8 on Twitter.
Well, and those are completely fair to have, Edson, considering that you followed him a little bit more, and from coaches and just media basically saying, yeah, he's average at best at the moment. Well, let's look back to 2 years ago. Where did he play at? Was Miami. I think there has something to do with heat. or the temperature involved, basically the tropical area, possibly the culture, possibly. But that's of course way outside of anything that has to do with soccer. We'll see what happens when they play their friendlies. We'll see if the friendlies are open, which, let's be honest, they're probably not going to be open friendlies even at home. They'll probably be behind closed doors, which is completely fair. No one truly wants to see a friendly anyway, because again, they're scrimmages to see where the players are at just in general. That's how I feel about NFL preseason anyway too. So besides all of that, because of me, I haven't seen him play. I can't necessarily judge. I'm just hoping that, like you said, he gets back on that horse and is able to ride off into the sunset with a better career on the horizon than where he's at the moment, which of course on paper and from what I'm hearing from you is not great in person, at least. So it's just a lot of that of where I don't know.
And
that's
the thing.
We do know, it's going to be hopefully great.
And that's the thing. I'm basing myself off of, obviously that one instance that I saw him, based him on statistics, based on, just a quick, summary of somebody that has seen him, week in and week out at El Paso. So it's really not a good, I guess you want to say judgment, or anyway, for me to say definitively for sure, he's going to be a bust. Right. It's a limited spectrum of knowledge that I have of Cristiano Francois. I'm hoping to get somebody on the next couple of days, kind of maybe record a video with them. Somebody who has had a little bit more knowledge about Cristiano Francois, maybe another one about Ian Cerro. That hopefully we can learn more about these players coming in, and obviously Gabriel Benitez as well. So those are the signings that were made in this offseason. Guys in the chat, I want to read your thoughts about what you think about these signings. Do you agree with us? Do you disagree with us? And our evaluations, our quick evaluations of these signings, leads me to this question, and this kind of leads into Quema no Quema K, right? That segment that I debuted last season. And this is the statement that I made at the Stampede chat, and I want to get your thoughts, both Jacob and the chat, real quick. Okay. before we talk about preseason schedule and then the show. Is RGVFC becoming a gateway for lower league players to enter USL Championship? And do you see that being our way of making business from here on out?
Sort of. I mean, we're kind of seeing it, but it's not like it's not full, because that would be 2017, 18, 19, 20 Toros. More than 2021, 22, 23 Toros. 100% for sure. Because, yeah, we have some young players, but I mean, for crying out loud, there was JDC on this team. There was seniors on this team, basically, that were on their way out. So that's very difficult to say that this is a gateway for players to join the USL Championship. I mean, that's also still, to this point, what the USL was supposed to be made of. In the first place, was you were going to have young players, no matter what, join a team, the USL Championship, because this is still not Division 1. It goes back to it. And it's not even with RGVFC. It's with San Antonio FC. It's with Louisville City. It's Phoenix Rising. I mean, the list goes on for them having young players. Some young players don't make it in the MLS right off the bat, so they come here. They come to the USL to beef up, to get used to it. I mean, we had college players come here for a bit. Again, this was in Houston Dynamo era Toros. and they showed that they were still too young to really be here. Some had to go back to college, for crying out loud, aka Cabrera Jr., which he's doing pretty freaking great. I hear, at least. I mean, he is about to graduate Butler. So I mean,
Brandon Morales.
Exactly, Morales. It's things like that where that's what this league was technically made for. The Toros are doing it some, but not to the degree where it was 2020 all over again.
Well, back in the Dynamo years, we didn't really grab. Well, obviously, League One still hadn't been fully formed, right? I think League One came in back in 2019 or 2020? I don't remember exactly.
It's like, 2018, 2019 basically was right.
Yeah, but it was mostly players right out of college or players that were coming out of the Houston Dynamo Academy. Like 100%. It wasn't players that were already in the professional environment of USL League One. And I agree. I didn't think of that, honestly. What you mentioned, that that the USL was made for. It's a lot easier for players to rise up from USL League One or USL League Two into the championship, and vice versa. Players from the USL Championship to find their footing in USL League One. We just saw it with who was it? Who just signed with? I know Kevin Rodriguez was with FC Tucson. We just recently. Stefan Mueller. Stefan Mueller. I think he just signed with a USL League One team. I don't remember if it was Lexington or it was Knoxville. I don't know. I don't remember exactly. But he signed with USL League One. And Stefan Mueller, he was with us last season. He really didn't get a lot of minutes with the Toros, right? So he's trying to find his footing in the professional environment in USL League One. But I just thought it was curious that we've already had 3 players from Chattanooga Red Wolves, 1 player from Chattanooga FC, and then another player, from near Red Bulls 2 was an MLS2 team. But I think JV Anueva said it best right now here in the chat. He said, "I'm okay with that as long as the best of the lower leagues come here," and we are kind of seeing that. And we've gotten players that have adapted well to USL Championship, and I think that kind of speaks dividends on the scouting from Gerson Echeverry. On being able to scout players within the USL system that can adapt well into USL Championship, or players from the MLS2 teams that have the potential to continue to grow, like what Wahaba Akwe is doing with RGV FC coming in from Loudoun United. Joe Granson says, yes, but not young players. If that is the way to go, we need young players to form and build, but not leaving out local talent.
That's why there's tryouts.
Yeah, and I think the problem with local talent is more along the lines. I think a lot of the players that we have here, they enjoy playing soccer and they're good at playing soccer, but maybe a couple of those that have the talent to make it to professional, maybe just aren't ready to make the sacrifices that it takes to make it into pro. Mm-hmm. I do agree. We need to give more local talent an opportunity, but at the same time, you have to be ready. It's not the same playing professional in USL Championship and then playing in the Sunday League. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Pancho Gomez, and your Selección del Valle. It's true. You have to be a professional. You have to make sacrifices. Look at me. I didn't make the sacrifices. I'm sure as hell never going to be making as a professional soccer player as much as I love soccer, right? I didn't make the sacrifices of working out, not eating a lot, and you're not going to go anywhere with that. I decided to go into school. I decided to make a podcast about soccer. Yeah. And going to school, to be an applications developer takes a different kind of sacrifice, Being a doctor takes a whole lot of sacrifice. Being a journalist takes a whole lot of sacrifice, especially monetarily. When you start, you're not going to get a lot of money, and you're going to end up making a lot of financial sacrifices. Okay. I have to get an apartment in a city that I don't know where to live, but I'm barely making enough money to, get enough food to eat, and you're going to have to be living with under ramen, eating ramen and all this stuff because, it's a sacrifice that you have to do. And I guess some people, when it comes to soccer, may not be willing to do that. And I think that's the problem. They're not patient, or they just don't want to make the sacrifice. And until we know as players what the sacrifices are and are willing to make it, then it's just going to be harder to find local talent that can survive in the USL Championship. But also, the Toros Academy is still in its infant stages, so we can probably see maybe a couple of years into the future more players going into that pipeline of going into the first team. We saw it with Brandon Morales. We saw it with Diego Rocha, who's now with Charlotte Independence. Javier Garcia as well. Isidro Martinez off of UTRGV. Can we keep them? That's the big question. Some of them decide to go back to college. Some of them decide to go into USL League One to regain their footing, like I said. It's not easy to kind of to retain players, especially with the Toros, right? Because at the end of the day, the Toros is just a stepping stone. Obviously, these kids, once they make it to the professional and they feel they're good at, well, they want to achieve higher. They want to go to a team that has a bit more prestige. Like, I hurts to say it, San Antonio, Louisville City, Tampa Bay Rowdies. The players want to make that decision. We can't hold them back just because, oh, you're from the Valley, we want you to represent the Valley. There's a lot of different factors as to why we can't retain or why we can't get, local players. And I'm hoping in the future that pipeline continues to grow, not only from the RGV FC Academy, but also from all these different local clubs that are here that are developing players. The Atlas Academy, the Tigres Academy, all these academies here that help build our future when it comes to soccer here in the Rio Grande Valley. But it takes every one of these clubs working together and not fighting against each other because of egos or because of jealousy for whatever reason. I've heard comments, of clubs that were reached out, to go to Toros games, to see the local professional team. And the guy from that club is like, no, I'm not taking my kids to go see that team because they're rivals. That their academy is a rival to us. And it's like, really? And that kind of mentality, we've seen it as well in Houston, with the Houston Dynamo. We have, all these local clubs kind of playing against, not wanting to work with the Houston Dynamo Academy, right? So when you get all these factors worked up, that'll probably give a better direction to help ease this pipeline of talent from the Rio Grande Valley into the professional. And it doesn't have to be with RGV FC. San Antonio can sign some of these players. MLS Next Pro, Houston Dynamo 2, Austin FC 2, North Texas SC can sign some of these players. Heck, maybe Liga MX teams can sign some of these players from the Valley as well. And they're going to make it professionally. And we want to see, players like Mikey Lopez with Birmingham Legion thriving in USL Championship. But it takes a process, and we're still not there yet. It takes a process, like I said, from the product itself, from the players that are trying to develop, from the academy itself to kind of hone their process and help make good jumps in quality when it comes to academy, when it comes to scouting for the talent, for developing the talent, and being able to make it easy and develop them to be able to thrive in a professional environment, and for these professional clubs to be open to the idea of signing all of these youngsters from their academy into the first team. And we're seeing it's so much easier to do it at a USL Championship level than it is at MLS, and much less at Liga MX. So that's my opinion on that. I kind of went on a big old rant. So Jacob, real quick. Sorry. Real quick, your thoughts, your final thoughts on that.
Final thoughts on that. But nothing really more to say besides, I mean, we'll see where it goes. Hopefully, only the academy improves, and yeah, we'll just see where all that leads.
So, so that is my opinion on that particular statement. Why I think about that statement. But like I said, Jacob also bring up really good points. But real quick, before we end the show, let's talk about the preseason schedule. So, RGV FC, surprisingly, this offseason has been full of surprises from the Toros to the fans. But surprisingly, RGV FC announced their preseason schedule that RGV FC will be having as they prepare for the 2023 season. I can say that, yeah, Wilmer really isn't a fan of making all of these things public, but we're just glad that I don't know who convinced him, or he had a change of heart by himself, but I'm just happy that he went ahead and allowed this information to be made public by the club. So Saturday, February 18th, they will be playing UTRGV here at HEB Park. Tuesday, February 21st, they will be playing Houston Christian University, formerly known as Houston Baptist University of Houston. Okay. We'll be playing on February 21st in Houston. And then the next day, the 22nd, they will be playing Houston Dynamo FC, the first team, probably a little bit of Houston Dynamo 2 as well. But they will see action against the first team players on February the 22nd. And then Sunday, February 26th, they will be playing Texas A&M International here at HEB Park. And then on Saturday, March 4th, they will be playing Austin FC 2 here at HEB Park. All of these games will be close to the public as of right now and close to the media as well. So it will give time for Wilmer Cabrera and the players to work on that chemistry and help prepare them for the 2023 season, which is close to starting. I think it was on March 12th was the home opener.
Yeah. Well, no, March 8th.
Against Las Vegas Lights, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, considering as well, one thing to bring up is, yeah, they get to play against two expansion teams in that time as well, which is pretty cool. That expansion team being Houston Dynamo FC. I don't know if y'all have heard of them too much, but they've been in the league for, what is it now, two years? They kind of bought Houston Dynamo, but now, yeah, Houston Dynamo FC. So that's kind of cool. And then, of course, ATX, that will be fun, that other expansion team. So, yeah, those are two difficult, per se, competitors, and hopefully they'll learn a lot about this team from those two expansion teams.
Jacob, your inner Timbers fan is showing.
Sort of. But also, I think a lot of Houston Dynamo fans believe in the same thing, too. A lot of Houston fans, I should say.
Well, I think a lot of Houston fans wanted to go back to having, going back to the times of 2005, 2006, even getting the same head coach. But I think overall, it's going to be an interesting year for Houston Dynamo. And I'm looking forward to see if there actually is improvement from the from the financial support that Ted Siegel and the moves that they're making with all of these signings, with Ben Olsen as head coach, and so we'll be interested to see that matchup, or hopefully find some information about what happened in that. In that matchup, whether I know it's preseason, but still it's preparation for what possibly could happen if they ever do meet the Houston Dynamo or another MLS team in the U.S. Open Cup in 2023.
Which shockingly is very likely considering last year. in
That
the
is
Open Cup.
yes, because it is regionalized. I know last year was regionalized. So, okay. Oh yeah. Yes. Real quick, new kits. They're asking about new kits. Joe Granson saying new kits. Obviously, nothing has been officialized yet. Nothing is said public. But from what I've heard, the away kit is staying the same. According to my source, the home kit is changing. That's all I can say.
I'm down. Even, I mean, I will say
What-
this again. The
Yeah.
USA's home kit this past World Cup was fantastic. Basic is always great. Just remember that.
Yeah. So I recommend be on the lookout for the Puma, the new Puma catalog. Yes, because we can probably expect not necessarily the team wear that they're selling, but maybe one of the new templates. Because you look at San Antonio's new kit, and it's basically a similar template that's on the catalog. Like it's custom made, right, with the stripes and the coloring and everything. But the general template, the general design of the jersey is similar to some of the ones that are in the catalog that are new for 2023. So if you want to get an idea what you can expect, just imagine it in blue. You can take a look at the catalog and see what could be possibly a home kit for the Toros. But what I was told by a source was that the away kit is going to stay the same. Now, this will be something that will be brought up in a future episode, but you have to remember, this is Puma's last year as a kit provider for RGV FC. So this is going to be very interesting to see what's going to happen for the rest of this season, and hopefully we can get some information on what could possibly be the new kit provider for RGV FC. Will they renew with Puma? Will they go with Charlie? Because this year off season, a lot of USL clubs have been making changes. Sacramento just went with Hummel, if I'm not mistaken. Oakland Roots just went with a kit provider from Barcelona. So we could possibly see a movement like that from RGV FC at the end of this season. So we'll see what Puma provides, both on a kit aspect and also on a financial aspect, with a potential renewal between the Toros and Puma as the official kit provider. Ray says, by the way, hi Ray, he says, white uniforms are meh. I disagree. I love the white uniform. The only reason I haven't worn it is because I bought it in large, and unfortunately I gained a lot of weight, so I look like I say in Spanish, un tamal mal enrollado, right? So I need to lose weight, but I'm starting to go to the gym. I went for the first time yesterday after a long years, and my legs are sore. So I hope that by mid-season, I'm going to be shedding a lot of these extra pounds that I've accumulated in the last couple of years since I moved to Houston. I know people hated the last home kit, but I like it, says Blue Club Sports. I like it. The only thing I hate about it is that it's too thin. This jersey, the material is too thin. It's not really... I mean, it's comfortable, but it's really not designed for everyday use. It's for on the field. It's light enough for when you're playing soccer that, it's not a hassle for you when you're playing it. It absorbs the moisture of your sweat. But for everyday use, it kind of feels weird, because it's too thin. Right, that's my only quirk with the home kits, that I'm wearing from last season.
Then what did you want, Edson? The players have to move, man.
Yeah, no.
Do you not want an authentic jersey?
Yes. No, I get what you're saying, and it's perfect. It's perfect for the players on the field.
Yeah.
But for a fan item, for everyday use, where where you're constantly washing it and and using it. So far it's held up well with the washes, but it feels different from people who are normally wearing t-shirts or polos or, other jerseys that are, not authentic, but, the replicas that tend to be a little bit thicker, right? So, but yeah, that's about it. Guys, I know my dad said that the elotes and the quesadillas are ready over at his place. So I'm going to go ahead and end it here so I can, because I'm really hungry right now. But I want to thank you all, everybody who hopped on to watch the show. Obviously, Jay, Joe, Harry, Callow, Abraham, Blue Club Sports, Joe Grandson, Travis Ricketts on Facebook, Code Awesome. Thank you all for tuning in. Like I said, it's great to be back. Hopefully we can get some more news so we can have another episode next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Jacob, thank you so much for hopping on. As always, I really appreciate all the help that you make for the coverage, not only for the Toros here with Down in the Valley, but now also with Rio, right? If I'm not mistaken, I know you were on a show a couple of days ago talking about soccer within locally here in the Rio Grande Valley, I believe for high school. So
high school and a little bit of Toros talk too.
Yeah. So any little bit of coverage helps, man. I appreciate all the work that you do. Thank you all so much. Let me just go over real quick the chat if I'm missing anything. Harry says, Jacob with trash takes, the USMNT kits suck. Didn't even know that was up for a discussion since no one liked them. I agree with Harry. I hated them. Harry Glue Cup says, I agree with you, but you didn't have to roast them like that. Abraham says, any upcoming press conferences announcements that you all might have been invited to? This Saturday, open tryouts. Media has been invited to talk with Gerson Echeverry. I will be there early Saturday morning. We will see what he talks about in the press conference. Probably get a little roasted a little bit by him, but it's all good banter between us and Coach Echeverry. But yeah. Whatever he brings, he talks about, I will be posting it on the YouTube channel regarding that press conference. Any future press conferences, I don't know for sure until media relations sends us a notification via email if there's going to be any other press conference, which probably won't be until the end of preseason, right before the season opener on media day. Actually, sucky thing is, media day is usually during the weekday. I have a full-time job that I must do, so I probably won't be there for that, but maybe Ray will probably be there. So if for some reason there's some coverage that the Toros announce and we're not, and we for some reason are not going to be there because of work or anything like that, be sure to check out Ray's channel, South Texas Border Sports. He does post interviews on his channel as well. Give him some love. Subscribe to his channel as well. Ray Silva says, budget Tyler Derrick. That's for you, Jacob. La Selección del Valle better be there at open tryouts. I mean, the invitation is there. It's up to them to accept it or not. But I've been hearing people complain about the fact that the Toros charge for open tryouts. I mean, at the end of the day, I can't. I know there's financial responsibilities that cover that this cover or this fee covers. But I do understand as well that it might be a little bit too steep for maybe a lot of people here in the Rio Grande Valley to be able to cover up front. But there's alternatives, man. There's alternatives. If there's a will, there's a way. That's what I'm saying. And we go back to the sacrifices that I talk about.
Yep.
If you know that you've got what it takes to be professional, you'll do whatever it takes to try to get the money to try out. That's my way of saying I may be a little bit privileged. I'm in a privileged position to kind of say that, but I mean, it is what it is. That is my opinion right there. Rafael Longoria says, I'll bring the Gatorade. Please don't remind me. I still have freaking nightmares about that night, about that Gatorade bath that Jacob was involved in too.
Well, let's be clear. Yeah, I did slip my mark a little bit, but you, Mister, you think you'd be easy to spot, but somehow, some way, you slip through the cracks. In my 6-foot height, did not spot you until a little too late. But Rafa was able to get one, and then I mean, hey, you got a beer afterwards, so I think that's all
Well,
good.
the best part is I wasn't even trying to slip past them. It just happened naturally. I was taking video of like the fans, and then all of a sudden I get bathed. No, all of a sudden, like, so I'm recording, right, as I'm going through, going into the locker rooms. It was obviously like in between the concourse. There's the fans there wanting autographs. So I'm walking there, taking videos of the fans, and all of a sudden, I see like one of the fans is like, ah, like pointing behind me. By the time I see that, I get drenched by Gatorade, thanks to Jacob and Rafa. So it was great fun. I deserved it. I was warned that was going to happen because I said that the team was not making playoffs. The team made playoffs, so my pretty much my what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, I was going to suffer with a Gatorade bath, right? So, but guys, thank you so much. I really got a jet because it looks like the elotes and the quesadillas are getting cold. We'll see each other next week in another episode of the Down in the Valley podcast. Jacob, take it away. Get us out of here.
All right. Thank you all so very much for watching. We will see you all next time.
Bye.
Bye. Cool.
All right, Jacob.